Welcome to the March 7th online service of San Gabriel Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, located in Georgetown, Texas. Our mission is to welcome all, promote personal and spiritual growth, and work for a just, peaceful, and sustainable world. If you would like to learn more about us, please visit our website at sangabrieluu.org. If you would like to be notified of our virtual activities, you may sign up for our weekly email newsletter, The Messenger. You can learn more about Unitarian Universalism by exploring the Unitarian Universalist Association website at uua.org. Our guest speaker today is Pat Smith. She is a longtime Texas UU living in Houston. She is on the Adult Religious Education Committee at Emerson UU, helping to plan and sometimes lead their Sunday morning discussions. She has experience being board president and being on a Sunday service committee, as well as having attended many regional and national UU events. Pat graduated from Southwestern University, so please welcome her back to Georgetown. Her service is entitled Unwritten Rules and Stealth Expectations.
Today's chalice lighting comes from Jennifer Grayson. Drawn together. We come together every week bound not by a creed or a mutual desire to please one God or many gods. Yet we are drawn together by a belief that how we are in the world, who we are together, matters. We light this chalice together in the knowledge that love, not fear, can change this world.
Please join as we say our affirmation together. The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other.
Good morning, everyone. So glad to be with you today. I've got a wonder box with me, and I imagine we all have wondering minds that we use to make guesses as to what might be in here. Somewhat noisy, but make your guess. Oh, I have a hint for you about what might be in here. what's in here, I also brought with me yesterday to church for our activity day. So if you can think what things I brought with me there and maybe shared with you there, that's what's in the Wonder Box today. So let's help each other learn and grow. Let's figure out what might be in here. Tell someone near you what you think it is. Delicious cookies. And I did have cookies yesterday. I've got a story about cookies. It's called
Cookies, Bite-Sized Life Lessons by Amy Krauss Rosenthal, illustrated by Jane Dyer. Cooperate means, how about you add the chips while I stir? Patient means waiting and waiting for the cookies to be done. Proud means, my chin is high and I sure do like the way my cookies turned out. Modest means you don't run around telling everyone you make the best cookies, even if you know it to be true. Respect means offering the very first cookie to your grandmother. Trustworthy means if you ask me to hold your cookie until you come back, when you come back, I will still be holding your cookie. Fair means you get a bite, I get a bite. Unfair means you get a bite, and now I get the rest. Compassionate means, don't worry, it's okay. You can have part of my cookie. Greedy means taking all the cookies for myself. Yum, yum, yum. Generous means offering some to others. Please take one. You too. Anyone else want a cookie? Pessimistic means how awful, how absolutely dreadful. I have only half my cookie left. Optimistic means this is great. I still have half my cookie. Polite means, excuse me, can you please pass the cookies? Thank you. Honest means, I have to tell you something. The butterfly didn't really take the cookie. I took the cookie. Courageous means, it was not easy for me to tell you that I took the cookie, but I took a deep breath and made the words come out. Envy means I can't stop looking at your cookie out of the corner of my eye. It looks so much better than my cookie. Boy, I wish it were mine and not yours. Loyal means that even though the new person has a much bigger cookie, I'm sticking by you and your little cookies because you're my very best friend. Open-minded means I've never seen cookies like that before, but I'm sure I'll try one. Regret means I really wish I didn't eat so many cookies. Content means sitting on the steps, just you, me, and a couple of cookies. Wise means I used to think I knew everything about cookies, but now I realize I know about one teeny chip's worth. The end.
So that story has never been part of the Wonder Box before, but we have used it in our religious education classes. In fact, our teachers have shared this story as a springboard into discussion of covenant and to help kids brainstorm what they might like to have in their classroom covenant, what ideas, what things they want to capture in their covenant about how they want to be with one another in relationship. So sometimes it really helps to have specific examples of that, of the ways we want to be present for one another. We'll talk more about that in RE time today. I'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Today's reading is from Natalie Briscoe. We gather today as human beings with two common but separate needs: the need to be an individual and the need to be part of a group. We want to be seen as individuals who have grown, changed, and accomplished so much. We want to be recognized for our hard-won integrity. At the same time, we also want to feel a part of something larger than ourselves, to know that we are dipping our hands into the continuously flowing river of life. In our families, we want to know we are loved and accepted and cherished. In our congregations, we want much the same thing. Our faith tradition of Unitarian Universalism gives us wonderful tools for navigating the tensions between being an individual and being part of a group. These tools are our covenants, the way we practice our religion.
Unwritten rules and stealth expectations. Once upon a time, my family lived in Edmonton, Canada for 6 months, early July through mid-December. Before we got settled in an apartment, we stayed with friends in their house. To introduce us to some of their friends, our hosts invited a few people over one evening to meet us. All the visitors took off their shoes at the door. So men were walking around in their socks, women in their hose. My impression was that they wanted to be comfortable and felt at ease doing so. And this happened at other houses we visited. It seemed to be an expectation based on an unwritten rule. My family was from the southern United States, and Texas at that, so we were given some leeway. No one got angry because we violated this unwritten rule. After all, how could we be expected to follow rules we did not even know about? Rules? What rules? But it happens a lot. Brene Brown says we have a tendency to visualize an entire scenario or conversation or outcome. And when things don't go the way we'd imagined, disappointment can become resentment. This often happens when our expectations are based on outcomes we cannot control, like what other people think, what they feel, or how they're going to react. We often expect a certain behavior without letting anyone know. When these expectations go unmet, we are disappointed. And the more significant the expectations, the more significant the disappointment. In fact, some unmet expectations go beyond disappointment. Anne Lamott says expectations are resentments waiting to happen, maybe even anger. They are stealth expectations. Stealth expectations that everyone will follow, the unwritten rules. In the case of the shoes in Canada, we figured out the unwritten rule, so we started taking off our shoes when we visited other homes. But we couldn't figure out why it was done. Where did this custom come from? I felt excluded in a way, that this was a secret others were keeping from me. Of course, all I had to do was ask, but I was too embarrassed. I wanted to fit in, and asking about this custom guaranteed that I was an outsider. Of course, everyone knew that anyway. As our stay in Canada stretched into the fall and winter months, I did figure it out. Snow and sleet and yucky mess, oh my. So rather than go into someone's house wearing shoes with snow and sleet and yucky mess, oh my, we took off our shoes and left them at the door. Even in the summer, this unwritten rule was followed. Guests took off their shoes out of habit. Unwritten rules and stealth expectations. Now, out of habit, when I visit a friend, I often take off my shoes at the door. From this experience, I learned to follow local customs, whether I understood them or not. At the same time, I got into the habit of asking why particular customs were there, where they came from, Sometimes they made sense to me, sometimes not. But occasionally I still fall into old habits. I'm too embarrassed to ask about something because I want to fit in, so I pretend I know the answer. Our children learn about unwritten rules and stealth expectations early on, before they can walk, before they can talk. They know the household rules and their parents' expectations. They learn by observing others. They also learn by trial and error. When they go outside the understood boundaries and break the unwritten rules, they are chastised or disciplined. They learn what is okay and what is not. They also learn the gray areas. To justify their behavior outside the boundaries of the unwritten rules, they might say, "Jimmy's mama lets him do it." A parental response might be, "We don't do that in this family." Unwritten rules and stealth expectations. In many Unitarian Universalist congregations, the first class of the school year in children's religious education, RE, is to talk about rules of behavior. And something general such as be nice doesn't work. Kids need specifics. So here are a few I thought of. Don't hit. Don't call each other names. Don't fight over toys. These are quite negative, and kids get an earful of don'ts all day, every day. What are the do's? Well, as it turns out, the kids themselves usually come up with something pretty good. And since they are making their own rules, they are more likely to follow them. Your director of religious education, Karina, sent me a picture from the classroom of the second, third, fourth, and fifth graders in your congregation. Note the title, Our Class Covenant, and the words, "we will," followed by a list of behavior. Trust each other. Treat each other with integrity. Help each other learn. Care for each other. Believe in each other. Treat each other with love. Respect each other. This is a list of agreements, of promises to each other. It is indeed a covenant. The idea comes from our Unitarian and Universalist forebears, who got it from their Puritan forebears. Puritan congregations began the practice of covenanting when they broke away from the Church of England. They had to figure out how they were going to organize themselves in their own religious communities. In the colonies, they did this by writing the Cambridge Platform in 1648. It later became a guide for Unitarian and Universalist congregations who broke from Puritan churches. And that is how we today conduct ourselves with congregational polity. A follow-up document is the Orlando Platform. Just Google the words Orlando Platform and you'll get it. It was developed in this century, just 10 years ago, in 2011, by representatives of 4 districts of the Unitarian Universalist Association. These 4 districts no longer exist, and together they are now known as the Southern Region. The Orlando Platform states that through deep conversation and listening, we need to redevelop the covenantal relationships, which are the cornerstone of our policy. And you know what? We have a covenant. It's the affirmation you recite in every service. The doctrine of this church is love. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with one another. And note the word covenant in the last line. Thus do we covenant with each other. So this affirmation is a covenant. Your covenant describes who you are, what you hold most important, and how you agree to be with one another. Since UU congregations do not have a specific covenant, all of them share a covenant, whether they realize it or not. Our 7 principles and purposes. These are given in the gray hymnal right before hymn number 1. It's an easy way to remember where it is. The preamble states, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote." And that's followed by the 7 principles. And after that is the list of the 6 sources from which we draw our living tradition. The final sentence of the conclusion states, "As free congregations, we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support." Note the word covenant used in the beginning as a verb and in the last sentence as a noun. In a fundamental way, we need to rediscover, reaffirm, and understand who we are, what we hold most important, and how we agree to be with one another. The last part addresses behaviors, how we agree to be with one another. And the children's covenant I showed earlier is modeled after that. Remember that it was an agreement of how they would be with one another. It was a promise. It was posted in the classroom. And since they could see the agreement when a rule was broken, when there was a breach of one of the promises of the covenant, the teacher or another student could point to the specific rule that applied. It's nice to have some written rules and some open expectations. This is even true for adults. At a UU workshop I attended several years ago, participants were asked to write a covenant. One of the requests was to include the idea of humor. Here is a covenant that one small group put together. Covenant to heal the world. We covenant to establish the blessed community among us by respecting the uniqueness in all individuals, and we do so with good grammar, by welcoming and including even those who get on our nerves, by dropping our grudges after adequately airing them to the individual, by listening to each other, even when we know the other person is wrong, by cutting each other a lot of slack. And we do this with the utmost humility. This covenant is whimsical and also quite blunt. It's not esoteric. It's very specific. And sometimes we need humor and bluntness to really understand. Here's another example. This comes from Natalie Briscoe, a co-lead of the Unitarian Universalist Association Southern Region Congregational Life staff. Some of you know Natalie. In her first year as a professional religious educator, Natalie visited a youth group and was asked to sign their covenant. The first line said, respect. The second line was, one person speaks at a time. The third line of the covenant gave her pause. It was printed in large block letters. No cannibalism. When she asked about it, one of the teens answered, "It means we don't eat each other." There was some laughter. Then another teen explained, "It means we don't tear each other apart. We don't take each other down from the inside. It means we support each other in our different positions within the group. We build each other up, even when the situation gets really, really hard." Natalie says that to her, the most important part of the no cannibalism rule is that we always assume the best intentions of one another, and we live into the reality that we really are all in this together. This example by Natalie Briscoe has helped me understand covenant much better. Sometimes it's nice to have specific rules and specific and open expectations. Unitarian Universalism, a Unitarian Universalist community, is an organizational structure, including bylaws for its legal existence, as a nonprofit 501c3. At the same time, a Unitarian Universalist community is not a run-of-the-mill nonprofit organization, and a Unitarian Universalist community is not a club. A Unitarian Universalist community is a religious community, which historically and fundamentally at its core is grounded in covenant. So a Unitarian Universalist community is not only a religious community, it is also a covenantal religious community. Its members are bound together by the promises they make to one another. For members of a Unitarian Universalist community, the covenant describes who they are, what they hold most important, and how they agree to be with one another. And it describes how they agree to disagree. In a secular organization, in a business environment, for example, disagreements and conflict might be settled through mediation after a grievance is filed, or even by a lawsuit. By contrast, a Unitarian Universalist religious community resolves disagreements and conflicts by returning to basics, to the covenant. So what does this mean? How does this identify specific actions for me, for you, for us? Let's go back to the whimsical covenant, and I'll pose some questions around it for you. It was humorous and also to the point. Can we welcome and include each other, even though we sometimes get on each other's nerves? Can we state our concerns directly to one another in a loving and clear way and not express them as grudges to a third person? And can we drop grudges after talking and listening to each other? Can we listen to each other even when we know the other person is wrong? Can we cut each other a lot of slack? And can we do this with the utmost humility? Sometimes it's nice to have some written rules and open expectations. Amen, blessed be, and namaste.
On behalf of the larger San Gabriel Fellowship, I want to thank Pat Smith for her words today. As we state every week in our affirmation, we are indeed promise makers and promise keepers. We gather to reaffirm that covenant. We will continue reflecting on the promises we make to each other in our time together on Sunday at 11:30. Your presence will enhance our thinking and our conversations. We hope to see you then. As Natalie Briscoe reminds us, we want to feel a part of something much larger than ourselves, to know that we are dipping our hands into the continuously flowing river of life. May it be so.